Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. Today in the rLounge, motherhood takes an unexpected turn for OP as she eagerly awaits the arrival of her baby girl. Amidst the magical moments of pregnancy, the joy is marred by a mother-in-law with a questionable family tradition. Mother-in-law wants to name my baby on her name. I refused it and banned her near my child. I, 31 female, am an expecting mom. My baby girl is due in 5 weeks, and I can't wait to see her and take her in my arms. You understand my feelings, don't you? Your flesh and blood, whom you are carrying inside of you for 40 weeks, is just so magical to finally take them in your arms. I'm already crying. So, amidst all this feeling of anticipating your baby and the dilemma of childbirth, my mother-in-law is playing her own dirty game of naming my baby after her own name, Susan. Yeah, she wants my baby to be named Susan. Ever since we got to know that it's a baby girl, she has been pestering us to name her Susan. She said it was her family tradition to name the baby after the grandparent's name. However, my husband is not named after his dad's father's name. Instead, he was named after Susan's dad. You see the hypocrisy, and that's why I don't want to fall for it. Had it really been a tradition, I would have given it a thought. When she first brought up this topic, I didn't get bothered a lot. I thought it was just her suggestion. It was in my 5th month antenatal visit that we got to know that it's a girl. We organized the gender reveal party in my 7th month, and since then, she's been behind me. A week later at my gender reveal party, she showed up at our house saying she just wanted to check up on me. My husband wasn't home. She was like, "Oh, then it's a baby girl." I said, "Yeah." She said, "Then it's my little Susan inside of you." I really didn't get her. I just gave a confused smile. I didn't know if it was supposed to be a way of saying that my daughter is the heir of her family or something. I just let it slide. A few days later, she again showed up. She asked about my health and asked me if I was feeling the baby's movement. I said yes, I feel it, but now I think she's sleeping because I haven't felt her for a while. She was like, "Oh, my little Susan must be resting." This happened quite a few times until I wasn't able to hold myself back and asked her what she meant and why she kept calling my baby Susan. You see, I asked my husband also about his mom calling my baby Susan. He just nods his head and says he has no idea. So I had to ask her because it was bothering me. She said the baby is supposed to be named Susan after her grandmother's name, which is her. I asked her why. She said it was the family tradition to name the baby after grandparents. My mind got blown up on hearing this, and I couldn't think of anything to give her back or decline her suggestion. So I just stood quiet and didn't say anything. She understood from my flustered face and my body language that I didn't like it, but she doesn't care. My equation with my mother-in-law has never been good. Right after I got married to my husband, she's been a wicked lady. My husband is a no-nonsense person and doesn't want to get into any of family drama. When he saw that we were not getting along together, he just asked me to stay away from my mother-in-law. I gladly stepped aside. I mean, why not? Who wants to deal with that woman? So, due to my husband's shield, my mother-in-law had zero influence on my life, and I couldn't thank my husband enough for this. But with my pregnancy kicking in, she's again started poking her nose in my business. She visits me often to apparently check on my health, but now I know she was here for her hidden motive. This has been happening for over a month now, and my pregnancy hormone has been tested to the core. So yesterday, I let it loose on Susan. She came in the afternoon when my husband was not around. One more thing, I don't know why she deliberately shows up just when I'm about to take an afternoon nap. That's another thing that pisses me off. You know how fatigue kicks in the 3rd trimester? Thankfully, I work from home, which gives me the flexibility to work at my schedule. Even with that, you don't get to lie down whenever you want. For my work, afternoons are a little slumbery, so I use that window for a quick nap, and my mother-in-law shows up just then. When I heard the doorbell, I instantly knew it was her. For a moment, I thought to ignore it, but that would have led to another chaos. Last time I tried to ignore her door knock, but she panic called my husband that I wasn't responding and there might be an emergency. My husband rushed home. I had to pretend that I was sleeping with my earphones on. So you see, this is what she does. So I answered the doorbell, but I was also adamant about giving her back, this time, if she ever called my baby as Susan. I sat with her for a couple of minutes and then headed back to my workstation. Working was still better than sitting and killing time with her. God, I was so annoyed with her that I wanted her to bring up the topic of baby naming that I can give it back to her. When I was leaving for my workstation, she said, "Okay, I'll leave. You take care of my little Susan. That was it." I came back and sat with her on the couch and asked her if she was serious about naming the baby. She said yes. I told her with a straight face that I don't want to name my baby to be Susan. She was like, "Why not? It's such a beautiful name, and besides, it's a tradition." I wanted her to say this. I asked if this was a tradition, And why was my husband not named after his dad's father? He was instead named after Susan's father. She fumbled for an answer, and before she could make any false stories, I said, if that's the tradition, I would name my daughter on my mom's name. Oh my God, she didn't see that coming. Her face was flustered, and she just got up and stormed out of the house, saying something under her breath. I was so relieved to see her going. I just wish she doesn't show up again. When my husband came in the evening, he asked me if his mom was here. I said yes. He nodded and didn't say anything. I asked him what's up. He said nothing, just that his mom called him and she was angry that I didn't agree to name my daughter Susan, and instead I wanted to name her on my mom's name. I asked him, and? He just laughed and said, you know how mom is. She said that you insulted her and asked her to leave and never show her face. I rolled my eyes and said, I wish I had said that. He asked me to relax and ignore her. I know my husband is such a doll and I adore him for that, but you see how she tries to manipulate my husband against me? Lord is kind to me that my husband is not influenced by her, else she would have ruined my marriage. First off, congratulations, OP. It's undoubtedly an exhilarating time. Please don't let your mother-in-law overshadow that. Naming your child is an incredibly personal decision and one that should reflect your preferences and values. It's unfortunate that your mother-in-law is pressuring you to follow a tradition that seems to lack consistency. Thank goodness your husband is on the same page as you. Honestly, she's only pushing herself away. And if that's the case, let her sit this one out on the sidelines. Update 1. Hello, people. I'm over the moon holding my gorgeous baby in my arms while writing this. She is a week old. I know last time I said she was due in 5 weeks, but she arrived 2 weeks early. She was so eager to see Mama. You know, after that confrontation with mother-in-law, I thought my problem was over and that she's not going to put her foot on my business again. But dang, I underestimated that woman. A few days later, my father-in-law called my husband and said that Susan was very upset because I misbehaved with her. She's not eating properly, not taking her meds, and not talking to anyone. She was just sobbing and sulking over the fact that I had refused to name my baby as Susan and also threatened to ban Susan from my daughter. That's not true at all. I never said that. My husband said that I was at the peak of my pregnancy, and at the moment, he was not going to stress me with these stupid things. Though I had unwavering support from my husband, my blood boiled on hearing these false accusations. Father-in-law insisted my husband come over and talk to Susan. The next day, my husband visited her. She faked tears and went overboard with her lies. To calm her down, he apologized on my behalf. She said she doesn't need an apology, but to have a granddaughter named after her. My husband said that it was our baby and should be our decision. It led to some arguments where Susan threatened that she would cut us off if we didn't oblige to her request. It wasn't a request, though. It was an order, and she was adamant about enforcing it. When my husband said this, I said to myself, fine by me, but whatever it is, she is his mother, and I cannot be that mean to him to say that up front. He didn't say anything at the time, but 2 to 3 days later, he casually suggested that I keep the official name of the baby whatever I wanted, and let's call her Susan as a pet name. I was aghast. Why the hell I would call her Susan? I don't want to spell or hear Susan in my house, and keeping my daughter's pet name as Susan breaks the purpose of my refusal. I denied it up front. He got agitated and said that we needed to find a middle ground, and this was the only solution. He said that if I didn't like the idea, we could have her official name as Susan and call her whatever I wanted at home. I said no, that's not happening. He was not happy with my response, but I was not in a good physical and mental state to get into a fight, so he didn't say anything further. Eventually, we got busy shopping for the baby and setting up for the house for her. My labor also kicked in after a few days, so we didn't discuss the topic after that day. Though it was there on the back of my head, but I ignored it. My contractions started early, and within a few days, my baby was crowning. Our close family and friends visited us, but Susan was nowhere to be seen. I was discharged from the hospital in 2 days. Yesterday, my husband addressed the elephant in the room. He was like, "So you're still sticking to your decision of not naming the baby after my mom?" It was such a beautiful moment of us, cuddling our newborn, and he brought up this topic. I wasn't in a mood to fight. I asked him what did he want. He said what's the harm in letting his side of the family call the baby Susan while I keep her official name whatever I wanted. I ultimately gave in, but I strictly warned that neither I nor he would call her by that name. Susan and father-in-law could call her whatever they wanted. He was happy with that. Though I agreed to it, I'm not having a very good feeling about it. I mean, that woman didn't even show up to see my daughter, and she wants to be named after her? She was so arrogant that she didn't even put her guard down to see her granddaughter. So, why do I need to agree to her demands? Now that I have agreed with my husband, I don't know how to retract from here. I also know that it might lead to a disagreement with my husband, which I really don't want at this point in time. That man has been really supportive of me all this while, and I don't want to get into any fights with him. I really don't know what to do. Ew, she really tried to take the attention away from this baby. That's horrendously immature behavior. By what? Letting them call the baby whatever they want to? No. Just set boundaries. Your baby girl's name is what the name is. That will be hecking confusing as the baby grows up. My God, put your foot down. Update 2. This Susan woman is not leaving any stone unturned to satisfy her fake ego. As I mentioned earlier, I agreed to let my husband's family call my baby Susan. Mother-in-law finally visited us to see her granddaughter. She came up with huge banners and posters and welcome baby Susan, love you Susan, and all that. Almost everything she carried either had Susan written on it or it was with an S. My daughter's name starts with R, by the way. Also, my mother-in-law's favorite color is green, so everything she brought for my daughter was green. I'm not being petty to call out this, but she is obsessed with herself, her name, her color. Oh my God. I mean, have you ever seen a baby top to bottom covered in grass green, green onesies, green mittens, and green socks? I didn't know that they manufacture baby items in this color until I saw it. She didn't say anything to me, neither asked about my health. She gave me cold shoulders, and so did I. She just kept calling my baby Susan excessively, maybe just to annoy me. She just went so overboard in showing her love that she messed up my daughter's sleep cycle. I did subtly try to say that it was her nap time, but she just ignored my existence. I wanted to snatch my baby from her arms, but my husband wasn't around and I just didn't want to get into a new fight with her. She would have exaggerated the entire thing to create a whole new story. As soon as she left, I just got rid of all the greenery she had put on my baby. There were many weird and silly things mother-in-law had pulled off in the last 3 months, like creating a social media page for my baby with the name Baby Susan and posting her pictures and videos. I know a lot of parents do this for their infants and toddlers these days, but I'm not in favor of doing this a lot. The social media pressure of getting likes and comments subjects a baby to a very superficial sense of beauty and liking, and I don't want my daughter to have early access to the superficial world. In fact, I also don't post pictures of her mom from my account, except for the baby announcement. I haven't put up anything. But this woman has no chills. There is not a single day when she has not posted my daughter's pictures. How does she get so many pictures? Well, she clicks. She visits us every other day and clicks as many photos as she wants. We can't say no to her visit or to her clicks. It annoys me to the core, but what can I do? I mean, how do I ban her from meeting her granddaughter when she's not troubling her or any of us? Whatever. This is a very silly thing compared to what she has done now. My baby turned 3 months old 2 weeks back, so we took her to our family church to get her baptized. During the event, when the priest started the procedure, he called my daughter Susan. I was shocked. He was reading the name through a paper, which I realized was the form I filled out while registering for the service. I felt embarrassed to do so, but I stopped him midway and said that my daughter's name was not Susan, and that I had not filled Susan in the form, but her real name. Mother-in-law tried to intervene, but I ignored her and continued to ask the priest about it. He exchanged looks with mother-in-law and said that mother-in-law had visited the church a few days back and said that the form filled by me had an error and she liked a new form where she changed the name of the baby to Susan. I requested the priest to spell out the name of my daughter, which I have mentioned. My mother-in-law works for the church. She does some kind of bookkeeping work for the church. I'm not very sure. She is on good terms with the priest and other members of the church. She used that to access and replace the form that I had filled out for the baptism service. This confrontation led to chaos. My husband intervened and asked me to calm down. He said that the name actually didn't matter that much. I know it doesn't to that extent. The person getting baptized matters more than the name, but still there are sentiments attached to it. The name mentioned on the baptism document mattered to me at least. And how dare she pull such a petty thing behind my back? I might have acted immature, but I was done with her. She was making my life miserable. She had pushed all my buttons, and I wanted to cut her off from my daughter's life. After the ceremony, we had organized a lunch for the close family and friends. Susan was also a part of it. I was in a pathetic mood after that incident. My parents and sister tried to cheer me up. That's the best thing about having a baby. They don't let you stay sad. Seeing them smile lightens up your deepest sorrow. I enjoyed it for a brief moment when Susan decided to spoil it. When all the other guests went, and it was just our parents in the house, Susan brought up that topic as how I yelled at her in front of everyone in the church. She suddenly started sobbing. She was all very cheerful until now. She's such an imposter. My parents said that it was our family matter and they would take a leave. They left. Glad they did because I didn't want them to be a part of Susan's victim show. After they left, Susan became more vicious, blaming me for manipulating her son against her and whatnot. I heard all of it patiently, then took my daughter in my arms and went inside my room. While leaving, I just said that your son is a free and wise man, but if you want, you can take him back and tuck him in your skirts or chain him into your wrist. She got so furious at this. I tell you, but I ignored her and stormed inside my room and bolted it. Even from inside my room, I could hear her yelling at the top of her voice. Occasionally, I heard my husband's voice as well. It continued for more than an hour. When they were gone, my husband knocked at the bedroom door. I opened it thinking that he would be angry at me for creating a fuss in front of everyone in the church and then having a big mouth for his mom. But I was surprised at his gesture. He hugged me and said sorry. He said he shouldn't have pestered me to let them call my daughter Susan. She was our baby, and it should be our choice as to what we want her to be called. He said that he had banned his mom from our house and from our daughter's life until we felt comfortable because she was creating a trouble in our life. The first year of the baby's life is supposed to be the best period for the parents, and Susan was ruining that for us. He also made it clear that our baby would have just one name, which we have given her, and everyone should call her by that. I was shocked. I didn't see that coming. I asked him what made him say so, and why did he suddenly change sides when he was the one asking me to calm down in the church and telling me that name doesn't matter during baptism. He said that after the ceremony, he heard mother-in-law talking to his aunt complaining about me and swearing to separate me from the baby. She was saying that she could go to any lengths to preserve her name in the next generation and would also babysit my daughter when I resumed work and would eventually manipulate the baby against me. It was so evil of her. My husband said that he was waiting for all the guests to leave so that he could confront Susan about this, but gladly Susan brought up the topic, making it easier for him. Obviously, Susan doesn't like the confrontation because she was caught off guard. She called him simp and other derogatory names, but he stood on his grounds to not let her enter our personal space. My father-in-law also rebuked her for her evil tactics and asked her to stay away from us. My husband said if he let her in our space, she would ruin all the occasions of our baby's life, and we can't let that happen. I couldn't believe that he took such a harsh step to protect our daughter and my interests. So Susan is temporarily banned from our lives until she mends her ways, which I highly doubt that she would. In not putting your foot down and caving into your mother's fake crocodile narcissistic tears, you sort of did this to yourself. And literally, Susan, your mother-in-law, should never have had a chance to see the baby with this sort of unhinged behavior. Other thoughts? Thank you for following along today. Before you go, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you have something you want to share regarding today's content, we want to hear it. See you next time in the rLounge.